Hello, everybody. How we all doing? Well, it is official. My computer is done for. The melted ice cream incident, the melted ice cream sleeping incident from 2 years ago has finally caught up to me. I kid you not, this is the most ratchet laptop you've ever seen. I only have the left and right arrow keys. The up and down ones would get stuck just endlessly scrolling through pages. My Windows button, a shift button, control button, and I think my alt button were all removed at some point for similar issues. It was a literal depiction of sticky keys. The nail in the coffin, though, happens to be the permanently fuzzy screen. My poor eyeballs just can't endure that much longer. It's time, though. I've had that thing since 2018, and it served me well. And like my laptop, our story today has a very unexpected outcome. Today, I bring you the mysterious case of Monika Rizzo. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. My sources today come from a KSAT news article, a Just the Tipsters article, and an Unsolved.com article. On May 5th, 1997, Monika Rizzo, a 44-year-old wife and mother of two, left work abruptly that day and wouldn't return. Concerned or annoyed, maybe, her boss reached out a few days later and spoke to her at home. Monika said she had been feeling ill recently and would return to work the following Monday, on May 19th. This would be the last time anyone heard from Monika. The 19th came and went with no Monika in sight. This is the case's first confusing problem. No one actually knows exactly when she disappeared. Monika was at home on May 5th. She answered the landline and spoke to her employer. Then, on the 19th, she no calls, no shows again for work. Her husband, Leonard, never reports her missing, and it won't be until June 5th that police are first aware of any issue. An entire month unaccounted for where she could have disappeared. On June 5th, an anonymous caller rang police and said that Leonard murdered his wife and buried her bones in the backyard. Now, this came as a surprise since police were not aware of Monika or her disappearance. This was the first they heard of any issue there. However, they took this tip seriously and followed up. Quote, the San Antonio police arrived at Rizzo's house shortly after. Monika's oldest son answered the door. He told the police that he, who didn't live there anymore, was just visiting and hadn't seen his mother in a week. Inside the house, police found nothing out of the ordinary. Monika's clothes were still hanging in the closet, and her car was parked in the driveway. Nothing seemed to be missing except Monika Rizzo. While searching the backyard, the detectives stumbled across some bones, but they were clearly some sort of animal, and the anonymous caller had appeared to be wrong. Meanwhile, Leonard said he had seen her when she had got home on May 5th. He said a few days later, he woke up and Rizzo was gone. Despite not seeing her, Leonard never reported his wife missing. He told investigators he was, quote, very confused. It made no sense. My wife and I were very close. There was no reason for me to believe she wouldn't be coming back. Wherever she had gone, I had faith in her. I just chose to wait, end quote. I couldn't find any mention of this in the articles I read, but it seems as if this is the first time a missing persons case has been opened for Monika. A whole ass month after last seen alive. Leonard's wife goes missing and he decides to wait because he has faith in her. Very suspicious from the get-go. But beyond this anonymous tip, and now clarification of a missing person from her husband, police didn't have a whole lot to go on. Why would this mother suddenly up and leave her two children Was it a voluntary disappearance, or did foul play come into hand? And the biggest question of all, where is Monika? For the next month, police continued investigating and following the few leads they had. In the meantime, it appeared as if Leonard's life was not changed. I found no mention of him doing anything helpful concerning finding his wife or bringing her home, other than telling people he was, quote, hopeful or faithful. According to KSAT News, exactly 1 month passed and the anonymous tipster called the police back again. This time, the caller, who was later identified as family friend Robert Hakala, said Rizzo's bones were buried under a pile of tires in the backyard. Robert said he was at the Rizzo's home and saw the dog playing with a human jawbone. When police responded after Hakala's latest call, they made a gruesome discovery. A search warrant affidavit described human bones, hair, and bodily fluids all found in the backyard and barbecue pit. Just to jut in here, I don't know how they missed them the first time. Maybe they weren't looking too hard, but anyways. A group of archaeologists with the University of Texas excavated the backyard for 8 days and found more than 200 bone fragments, chopped into pieces less than 3 inches long. Dr. Robert Hart was part of this archaeological team. He said, "We literally crawled across the area, using our trowels and moving the roots, moving the grass blades, looking down beneath the grass, and every time we found a bone fragment or something the police department considered might be evidence, we put an orange pin flag out. And before their team was done, the yard was dotted with dozens and dozens of orange flags." Dr. Hart said, "When you find a bone in an old archaeological site, it's very dry. These bones still had a greasy feel to it, so we knew it had not been there very long. But at the same time, it had been there more than a week or a couple of weeks. There was no soft tissue still attached to it." Investigators thought the bones had gone through some sort of wood chipper or shredder, and at this point in time, they weren't sure if all the bones were Monika's or if they belonged to others as well. End quote. Immediately, police turned their focus onto the husband, Leonard. I mean, a few things right off the bat. 1, never reported his wife missing. Suspect. 2, she was found in their backyard. Like, even if somebody were trying to frame him, theoretically, how would you have not noticed? I don't know. Okay, anyways. And 3, he never did anything to help find his wife. Again, Leonard plays these findings off as naturally as he can, telling police, quote, "These bone fragments that are in my yard are an absolute mystery to me, as big a mystery as my wife's disappearance. To me, someone is trying to draw attention away from themselves. Someone is doing this to me." End quote. I first noticed again in that short paragraph of his, he isn't concerned for his wife. Instead, he's simply more focused on deflecting than finding any real answers. Knowing they most likely wouldn't get the truth out of Leonard, investigators spent time conducting interviews with friends and coworkers. And what they found was pretty interesting. Monika's colleagues told police that over the last few months, she had been losing weight rapidly, acting less like herself, and even had visible bruising on her body. Police re-examined the house and found broken drywall to possibly back up this domestic abuse claim by her coworkers. But again, Leonard denies these statements. He tells police, "There was no domestic abuse, there was no domestic violence. My wife and I were deeply in love. We are deeply in love." Again, here he talks about Monika in the past tense, but quickly corrects himself to the present tense. Remember, the bones at this point have been identified as human, but have yet to be specified as Monika's. So, for the sake of the story, Monika could still be alive, and I think a loving husband would never assume past tense. Anyways, the conversation with him further deepens the police's concerns. As the investigators did at this point, let's also take a quick look into the history of these two people. According to just the tipsters, 44-year-old Monika Louise Rizzo, maiden name McKinney, had, by all accounts, grown up happy, well-adjusted, and well taken care of by her adoptive parents, Bill McKinney, and mom, also named Monika. Bill was a career U.S. Army officer. The family moved around a lot when Monika was young, but no matter where they lived, Monika Louise, the daughter, was always known to be enterprising, hardworking, and honest to a fault. She maintained these traits for the remainder of her life, even though that life was never easy after she met Leonard, aka Lenny Rizzo, on a Honolulu beach in 1970 when she was only 17 and a senior in high school. Lenny was a beach bum, a motorcycle enthusiast, and an overall loser. He convinced Monika to marry him as soon as she turned 18, which is exactly what happened. Despite strong objections from the McKinneys and strong warnings of others familiar with Lenny and his family. And for 26 years, they stayed married, had 2 kids who were both boys. All seemed reasonably well, except that Lenny never really could hold down a job. He drank, used drugs, belonged to a motorcycle gang, and even ended up in jail on a narcotics. Holy crap. And even ended up in jail on a narcotics charge for a couple of years. Through all of it, Monika Louise held down the fort, earned the family income, and was always known as the most reliable employee wherever she worked. Throughout the marriage, there were signs that domestic violence may have been occurring. A black eye here, a burn or a severe scratch there, but no one ever did anything, and Monika Louise never implicated Lenny in any of her injuries. But by Christmas time 1996, signs were getting unmistakable. Now living in San Antonio, near her parents' home where Bill McKinney had retired, Monika had become one of the highest regarded employees at the Texas Department of Human Resources. But trouble was afoot. Between January and May of 1997, she began to show signs of distraction and lack of personal care. And she lost so much weight that by some accounts, she was down to 85 pounds by May 5th of 1997. She was not doing okay by any standard. Despite the bone fragments, a suspicious, unworried husband, and a pile of circumstantial abuse allegations, no arrests were made in connection to Monika's disappearance, and the case went cold. And Leonard would move on with his life. 2 years later, he runs into trouble again, this time with a new girlfriend. Quote, Leonard's current girlfriend told police he threatened to kill her, chop her up, put her in a garbage bag, and bury her. Sound familiar? San Antonio police showed up on his doorstep yet again, but this time they were greeted by a gun. A standoff ensued, and Leonard was shot after pointing a gun at officers. He survived the shooting and was later convicted on 4 criminal counts. In the same year, 1999, the bone fragments were finally positively identified as only those of Monika Rizzo. Her remains were buried beside her son, who had died in 1998 from cancer. And according to her gravestone, Monika was declared dead on May 28, 1997. End quote. What I think should have been 2 massive turning points here for the case, again fizzled. They have another case of domestic abuse. This girlfriend was threatened to essentially be killed in the same manner and buried like his ex-wife. And they now have an outward act of violence against police. Still, investigators never arrested Leonard for his wife's death, citing that they didn't have enough evidence. Which, sure, but fuck, I mean, he did it, right? Quote, Leonard has always been seen as the prime suspect in his wife's death, but he was never charged. He served 2 years in prison for charges related to the 1999 incident and the standoff with police, but was released in 2001 and has no other arrest in Texas. Monika's only living son declined to comment about his mom or the case. In 2011, Monika's father, Bill McKinney, published a book titled The Raw Truth. According to a description of the book, it's a nonfiction crime story that shares intimate family details of the victim. End quote. Meanwhile, in 2022, or at 24, these articles were in 22, San Antonio police said the case is still open and there is no new information. The original detective who handled the case has retired, and his original case notes are no longer available. Pooh. As of today, Leonard Rizzo remains a free man, left to torment more poor women along the way. And that, my friends, is the kind of mysterious, pretty unsatisfying story of Monika Rizzo's murder. Or, let's say, Monica Louise. A little different today, but I think it went well. I think that was fun, right? To end today, I just want to try something a bit different. I came across two other just mind-numbing stories I really want to cover, but I need help deciding which one to focus on. So I want your help, your opinion, feedback, blah, blah, blah. This Medium article happened to do a wonderful job summarizing the two cases that I'm talking about. All right. Number 1, Karina Holmer. This is not only sad, but also tragic. A 19-year-old girl moved to the United States from Sweden after she won a lottery of about $1,500. She secured a job in Boston and spent most of the weekends partying with her new friends. It was during one of her nights out, spelled that wrong, that she met her tragic demise. On June 21st, 1996, she was at a nightclub called the Alley Bar and was allegedly quite drunk. Having lost sight of her friends, she stepped out to look for them, and that's when she disappeared. Her body was found dumped in a trash bin 2 days later. What makes this case unique is the fact that her body was sawed through her waist and the lower part of her body was never found. Several suspects and persons of interest were interviewed by police. However, to date, the mystery of her gruesome murder remains unsolved. Okay, that's fun. Or number 2, Joan Risch, R-I-S-C-H. Quote, the events that took place on October 24th, 1961, marked the beginning of the most popular yet complex unsolved crime case in Massachusetts history. Joan Risch, the 31-year-old mother of 2 and wife, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. She disappeared when her husband left for a business-related trip. By the time police got to the crime scene, the house was found in disarray, with blood smeared on the walls, one child crying in a blood-filled room upstairs, and another child was found out on the streets wailing. The crime scene was quite confusing because it showed signs of a struggle and also signs of suicide. However, suicide could not be established since the body was nowhere to be found. The husband also established that there were empty beer bottles in the trash, and he had no idea where they had come from. The bloodstains further complicated the investigation. They were all over, or rather, did not follow a particular pattern, and thus were hard to interpret. The details from the crime scene do not indicate whether Joan was abducted or left on her own. A reporter by the name of Serene Gerson stumbled upon a piece of evidence that suggests Joan staged her own disappearance. She claims that Joan rented up to 25 books from the library a few months before her disappearance. These books were about missing persons and murder cases. Despite these speculations, Joan has never been seen, though the husband refuses to declare her dead, hoping she will return one day. End quote. Whew, I love them both. Let me know if either of those tickle your fancies. Thanks again to all of you wonderful, wonderful people out there listening. I hope to see you next week. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you.